Nobody showed up to bid, so I claimed an abandoned cruiser. What was inside shocked the galaxy. The hall was vast and almost empty, with a few murmuring bidders scattered across the polished floors. He could hear the faint hum of the station's engines vibrating through the metal walls. Most of the galaxy's rich and powerful had ignored this auction, as they always ignored the old, worn-out ships that had been left behind by the Great Wars. The listing had been clear: Zethurian cruiser, abandoned, functional status unknown. The description went on in dry, bureaucratic language, mentioning the ship's size, hull material, and the fact that it had been decommissioned decades ago. But something about the ship had caught Cale's attention. Most people saw junk, Cale saw opportunity. Still nothing, Cale muttered to himself, glancing at the counter. Not even one bid, the counter ticked down. 10, 9, 8. The excitement of a live auction usually made his heart race, but today it wasn't the crowd or the bidding wars that thrilled him, it was the silence. The silence told him no one else cared. That meant he could take the ship. Finally, the counter hit 0. Nobody showed up, nobody wanted it, and now it's mine. With a few taps on the tablet in front of him, Cale signed the transfer of ownership. The confirmation flashed green, ownership granted, cruiser secured. He grinned, feeling a rush of triumph. This was his chance to claim something others had discarded, something hidden, something valuable, if he could figure out what it was. Cale made his way to the docking bay. The abandoned cruiser floated silently among other ships, its hull scratched and rusted, the paint faded and peeling. The name plate read Zethurian Echo, almost invisible beneath layers of grime. Its engines were dark and no lights shone from its windows. Most people would have turned away. Cale stepped closer, his boots echoing against the metal ramp. "Here goes nothing," he whispered. The ramp extended with a loud clang, and he walked onto the ship. Inside, the air smelled old and stale, like metal left to rot in silence. Dust floated in the dim shafts of light coming from the ceiling. Panels hung loosely from walls, and wires snaked across the floor like tangled roots. Yet despite the decay, there was something strange about the place. A soft, steady hum echoed from deep inside the ship. Cale paused, listening. It wasn't the ship's engines. It was something else, something alive. Curiosity pulled him deeper into the corridors, past the crew quarters and the command bridge, and down to a heavy door marked cargo hold, restricted access. The hum grew louder here, vibrating through the floor beneath his boots. Cale's pulse quickened. He reached for the control panel, and with a hesitant tap, the door hissed open. Inside, hundreds of stasis pods lined the walls, each sealed tight and glowing with a faint bluish light. Cale froze. His mind raced. These weren't ordinary pods, they weren't human. The labels were alien, written in a strange, angular language he didn't recognize. But even without understanding the words, he felt a shiver of awe. A faint hiss came from one of the pods at the center of the room. The light flickered, and the pod slowly opened, revealing a being unlike anything Cale had seen. Its body was tall and slender, almost ethereal, with skin that shimmered like liquid metal. Its eyes glowed a deep violet, studying Cale with an intensity that made him step back. Cale swallowed hard, trying to steady his voice. Hello?" The alien didn't respond in words. Instead, it tilted its head, its glowing eyes scanning Cale's face, chest, and hands as if reading his mind. A wave of thought, strange and powerful, filled his head. He felt like he was looking into the being's memory, seeing flashes of stars, ships, and battles long past. This is incredible," Cale whispered to himself. He could hardly believe his luck. A cruiser abandoned for decades, filled with stasis pods of beings from a lost empire. No one else had even noticed. Cale quickly stepped forward and touched the control panel near the pods. One by one, the pods hummed, lights flickering in patterns he didn't understand. He pressed a button, just to see what would happen, and the pod in front of him hissed again, releasing a small cloud of mist before opening fully. The alien stepped out, moving with grace that made Cale's knees weak. "You're alive," Cale said, barely believing it. The alien's voice finally came, not as sound but as thoughts in his mind. "Yes, alive, you human. Why here?" Cale's heart raced. He had expected many things when he claimed this cruiser, but conversation with a living being from the ancient Zethurian Empire was not one of them. I claimed this ship. It was abandoned. Nobody else wanted it, he thought, trying to communicate. The alien's eyes glowed brighter. "Claimed? You understand the ship." Cale nodded even though the alien couldn't see him. I think I can." A soft sound came from the other pods. One by one, more of the ancient beings began to stir. They rose from their stasis, looking around, observing Kale. None were hostile yet. They were curious, cautious but curious. Kale took a deep breath. He was alone in a ship full of ancient alien life forms, and yet he felt prepared. Years of scavenging, exploring, and studying abandoned technology had brought him here. He could handle this. As he moved further into the hold, the aliens communicated in flashes of thought, images of stars and planets, ships and battles, passing through his mind. He could understand some of it, not perfectly, but enough to realize what he was holding. These were elders of the Zethurian Empire, beings of immense knowledge, preserved through stasis during wars that had destroyed their civilization. Kale's mind spun. This ship was more than a relic. It was a vault of knowledge, a treasure of power and wisdom, and somehow, against all odds, a human had claimed it. Outside, the auction hall remained empty. Nobody had shown up. Nobody had cared. But inside, Kale had awakened a secret that could shake the galaxy. He didn't know what would happen next. He didn't know if the beings would trust him or if other factions would come to claim the ship by force. But for the first time in his life, Kale felt unstoppable. This was more than a victory. This was the start of something no one could have predicted. The hum of the ship grew louder, a steady rhythm that seemed almost alive. Kale's eyes scanned the hold again, taking in every pod, every flicker of light. He could feel the history and the power contained within these walls, whispering to him, challenging him, daring him to unlock it. And Kale smiled. He had always loved a challenge. "Let's see what secrets you're hiding," he said, stepping forward, ready to awaken the rest of the Zethurian elders. The galaxy had written off this ship as a lost, forgotten relic, but Kale knew the truth. Some things are only waiting for the right mind to claim them. And that mind was human. The hum intensified as if the ship itself was waking. The pods stirred. The first alien stepped fully out, glancing at Kale with a mixture of caution and respect. For Kale, it was just the beginning. The cruiser was silent no more. Kale walked carefully along the polished metal floors of the cargo hold, his boots echoing against the walls lined with hundreds of stasis pods. Each pod contained a Zethurian elder, a being of intelligence far beyond what the galaxy had seen for centuries. Their eyes, some closed and some glowing faintly even in stasis, seemed to watch Kale with a depth that made him feel both small and important at the same time. He stopped in front of the first pod that had fully opened. The elder, its violet eyes gleaming, tilted its head as if examining him. Kale swallowed hard. "I'm Kale, I claimed this ship," he said, his voice breaking the silence. I don't know what I'm doing yet, but I want to understand. I want to learn. I can help." The elder's gaze seemed to pierce through his words. Then slowly, almost imperceptibly, it nodded. Not verbally, not in sound, but in thought, a direct impression in Kale's mind. He felt a strange warmth, a bridge forming between them. "You are different," the elder projected. "You survive, you act, most do not." Kale frowned, surprised. "Yes, I survive, I act, but I need your help too." "Then learn," the elder replied, its voice soft in his mind but sharp with meaning. Kale's heart raced. He realized that communication with these beings wasn't through words, but through understanding. Images, concepts, emotions, they flowed directly into his thoughts. He staggered back, overwhelmed by flashes of history. Wars that had spanned galaxies, technologies that bent the laws of physics, fleets of starships disappearing into wormholes, and planets shattered by weapons beyond imagination. The other pods began to hiss, one by one, as the Zethurian elders stirred. The hum of the ship grew louder, vibrating through Kale's chest like a heartbeat. Slowly, one after another, beings stepped out. Each was unique, some tall and graceful, some broad and imposing, some almost ethereal. Their eyes glowed in colors he had no names for, scanning him with curiosity, intelligence, and wariness. Kale swallowed. This is incredible. He realized that the ship itself was responding to him. Doors opened automatically, lights followed his movements, and hidden panels slid away to reveal consoles, control rooms, and storage areas filled with technology that should have been impossible to understand. Yet somehow his human intuition guided him. He touched screens, pressed buttons, and lights flashed in acknowledgement. The ship recognized him as its captain, not just by ownership, but by spirit. As he explored, the elders communicated in bursts of thought. They were not hostile. They were cautious but intrigued. Images of battles, maps of distant star systems, schematics of starships, and energy grids filled Kale's mind in rapid succession. He could not comprehend all of it at once, but he understood enough. This cruiser was not just a vessel, it was a repository of Zethurian knowledge. "Humans, you are strange," one elder thought to him. "You do not fear, you do not wait for permission. You act." Kale smiled. "We survive, that's all we know how to do." The alien's eyes narrowed slightly, and then it projected another thought. "Perhaps you can awaken what we could not." "Awaken?" Kale asked mentally. "Our knowledge, our abilities, our legacy, locked in stasis, waiting. The ship chose you." Kale paused. The ship had chosen him. That explained why he could interface with its systems in ways even the Zethurians themselves might have struggled to manage. His mind raced with possibilities. If he could unlock the ship's secrets, he could wield technology and knowledge that the galaxy believed lost forever. He turned to the first elder who had awakened fully. "Then teach me. Show me what this ship can do." The elder extended its hand, not physically, but in thought. Kale felt a flow of energy, a connection forming between them. Memories and schematics entered his mind. He saw starship engines powered by energy grids no human had invented. Weapons that could pierce shields thought invulnerable, stealth systems that could hide fleets from sensors across light years. He absorbed it all as if the knowledge was already inside him, waiting to be unlocked. Hours passed, or was it days? Time felt strange aboard the Zethurian Echo. Kale moved from console to console, guided by the elders, learning to interface with systems that were alien yet intuitive. The ship's AI, or what he could only describe as the ship's consciousness, responded to him, aligning energy outputs, recalibrating sensors, activating communication arrays long dormant. Outside the hold, the galaxy was unaware. Corporations had sent scouts to observe the abandoned cruiser, curious why a human had claimed it. None had expected the scale of what Kale had discovered. By the end of the first cycle, Kale had activated several of the cruiser's hidden systems. Energy shields enveloped the ship, engines hummed with power, and hidden compartments revealed caches of materials thought extinct. Rare elements, starship components, and devices capable of manipulating gravity. The Zethurian elders watched silently, occasionally communicating flashes of thought, testing his understanding and patience. Kale realized that these beings were not only survivors, they were teachers, and he was their student. Then came the moment he had been waiting for. The central console, hidden beneath layers of dust and stasis residue, flickered to life. A holographic map of nearby star systems appeared, with blinking markers showing fleets, stations, and colonies. Kale could see every faction, every warship, every weak point in their formations. He felt the weight of potential power pressing against him, a dangerous but thrilling responsibility. Suddenly, the console beeped urgently. Kale turned to see a small display, a scout ship approaching the abandoned cruiser. They had found him. "They're coming," Kale whispered, his pulse quickening. He looked at the elders. "I don't know if they'll attack or negotiate, but we can't let them take this ship." One elder's eyes glowed brighter. "We defend. We survive. You lead." Kale swallowed and nodded. He realized that he was no longer just a human who had stumbled into an abandoned ship. He was the captain of an ancient Zethurian vessel, entrusted with knowledge, power, and allies no other human or alien had ever commanded. The scout ship came closer, weapons scanning, sensors probing. Kale felt a surge of adrenaline. The elders communicated strategies directly into his mind, showing him how to manipulate the ship's hidden systems, reroute energy flows, and create illusions on sensors. "We can outsmart them," one elder projected. "They will see what they expect, not what we are." Kale's grin widened. They'll regret underestimating a human. As the scout ship closed in, the cruiser's hidden systems activated fully. Holographic decoys of the ship appeared on all sides, shields shimmered like liquid light, and engines powered up in silent, deadly readiness. Kale had never felt more alive. The scout sent a warning, "Identify yourself. Human aboard abandoned Zethurian cruiser." Kale pressed his hand to the console and projected his own message, not words, but intent. "I am Kale Darnell. This ship is mine. Turn back." The scout hesitated, confused. Their sensors were showing multiple ships, multiple locations. They could not comprehend what they were seeing. And before they could fire, Kale executed the first maneuver he had learned from the elders. The cruiser twisted through space, warping slightly, appearing in a completely different position. The scout scrambled to follow, Kale laughed quietly. This is just the beginning. The elders watched silently, their approval clear in the way the ship hummed in response to Kale. They had tested countless beings, waiting for one capable of understanding and unlocking the Zethurian legacy. Against all odds, a human, small, fragile, unpredictable, had succeeded, and now the galaxy would start to notice. But Kale didn't care. He had a ship full of knowledge, allies in the form of Zethurian elders, and a mind hungry for discovery. The galaxy might think he was alone, inexperienced, and foolish, but the Zethurian Echo had chosen him for a reason. As the scout ship disappeared into the distance, Kale turned back to the hold. The other elders were fully awake now, their eyes glowing softly as they moved through the corridors, interacting with the ship and him. Kale felt a strange sense of calm. He was no longer just a survivor. He was a captain, a student, and perhaps, in time, something the galaxy had never seen before. He stepped toward the central console again, his fingers hovering over the controls. The galaxy was vast, dangerous, and full of enemies, and he would need every ounce of skill, courage, and intuition to survive what came next. But for the first time in his life, Kale felt ready. The Zethurian Echo thrummed beneath his hands, alive with power, history, and potential. And Kale Darnell, human and underestimated, was its master. The galaxy had better pay attention. Kale Darnell stood on the command deck of the Zethurian Echo, watching the holographic displays flicker with incoming fleet data. Every blinking icon represented ships, stations, and patrols that had noticed his presence. For weeks he had hidden in the outer sectors, awakening the Zethurian elders and learning the secrets of the cruiser. But now, the galaxy was beginning to notice. The first fleet arrived like a storm. A corporate coalition, heavily armed and arrogant, expected to take the cruiser easily. Kale's fingers hovered over the console as the elder beside him projected images and strategies directly into his mind. Each movement, each choice, had to be perfect. There was no room for error. They believe humans are weak, one elder thought, a faint shimmer of amusement in the projection. They are wrong, Kale smiled, gripping the console. That was exactly what he was counting on. The enemy fleet's sensors locked onto the cruiser, sending a barrage of warnings. "Identify yourself," their leader's voice boomed across the comms. "This ship belongs to the corporate alliance. You will surrender immediately." Kale's hand moved swiftly across the console. Lights flickered along the walls of the command deck. Shields activated, energy flowing to the cruiser's outer hull, and stealth systems engaged. Holographic decoys projected multiple images of the ship, making it appear as though a dozen cruisers surrounded the fleet instead of just one. The fleet commander's voice wavered, though he tried to hide it. "Impossible! They are everywhere at once." Kale leaned closer to the console, feeling the ship's hum like a heartbeat beneath him. "You didn't expect a human to know this, did you?" he said softly, more to himself than anyone else. The elders, now fully awake and attentive, guided him through maneuvers that no human, or alien, had ever executed. The ship twisted, turned, and vanished from the sensors of the corporate fleet. When it reappeared, it was behind them, showing a dozen weak points in their formation. Kale seized the opportunity. Energy beams flashed across the void, but they were not destructive, yet. They were precise, calculated enough to disable shields and engines without harming lives. Kale wanted to demonstrate capability, not provoke unnecessary bloodshed. Still, the effect was devastating. Ships were crippled, engines disabled, and the fleet scrambled in confusion. "You are learning quickly," one elder projected. "Human intuition is unpredictable." Kale chuckled. "Unpredictable works." The corporate fleet regrouped, sending in smaller strike teams to encircle the cruiser. Kale activated another Zethurian system, gravity distorters. Tiny fields warped space around the decoys and the cruiser itself, making it impossible for the enemy to calculate their positions accurately. Ships collided with each other or drifted helplessly into empty space. Every maneuver was deliberate, every action precise. And through it all, Kale remained calm. The elders observed him silently, almost proudly. They had tested countless beings over the centuries, and none had adapted so quickly, understood so fully, or acted with such clarity. Kale, a human, had unlocked something they had thought lost forever: the ability to command Zethurian legacy with intuition and creativity. Meanwhile, word of the abandoned cruiser and its mysterious new owner spread through galactic communication channels. Merchants, smugglers, and distant colonies speculated about Kale's identity. "A human claimed the Zethurian Echo," whispered one fleet commander over a secure channel. "Who even does that? Who could possibly control it?" Kale knew the galaxy underestimated humans. They had always thought humans weak, fragile, and disorganized. But here he was, using alien technology and centuries-old strategy to outmaneuver fleets that should have destroyed him. And it wasn't just technology, it was his thinking, his unpredictability, and his sheer willpower that made him a threat. As the corporate fleet retreated in confusion, Kale felt a surge of satisfaction. This was only the beginning. The elders projected more images into his mind, other fleets, other empires, distant warships that could sense the cruiser's activation. The galaxy was vast, and there were countless factions that would attempt to seize the Zethurian Echo. "They will come," one elder said. "They will test you, you must be ready," Kale nodded. "I've never backed down from a challenge," he thought, "and I'm not about to start now." The first of the elders' lessons was complete, survival. The next phase was understanding power. The cruiser contained more than ships and weapons. It held knowledge, ancient strategies, galactic history, and forgotten technology. Kale spent hours absorbing it, running simulations in the ship's holodeck, learning how energy fields, propulsion systems, and stealth technology worked together. By the end of the cycle, Kale could anticipate fleet movements, predict attacks, and deploy defenses in ways that even the elders found remarkable. He was no longer just a student, he was becoming a master. The galaxy would soon learn that humans were not just survivors. They were innovators, strategists, and relentless thinkers. Kale could see it now. Corporations, empires, and rogue factions would underestimate him, and that would be their downfall. Later, in the quiet of the command deck, Kale spoke aloud, though the elders could hear him in thought. "You know, they think humans are weak. They think we only survive by luck, but we survive because we adapt. We learn. We fight smarter than anyone expects." One elder projected a thought that made Kale's chest tighten with pride. "You are right. Humans are different. They act when others hesitate. They think when others follow orders blindly." For the first time, Kale felt the weight of his responsibility. The cruiser was powerful, yes, but it was also a symbol. Whoever controlled it could dominate sectors, command fleets, and shift alliances across the galaxy. The elders were wise, but they were long past their era of warfare. Kale was human. And humans thrived in chaos, in challenge, and in the unexpected. "We will guide you," the elders projected. "But the galaxy is yours to shape." Kale felt a thrill he had never known. He was no longer just claiming an abandoned ship. He was about to redefine what it meant to be human in the galaxy. The next fleet arrived before dawn, a coalition from several nearby star systems, a mix of military vessels and private mercenaries. They expected to overwhelm him, but Kale was ready. He activated the cruiser's stealth systems, fading from sensors, while decoys simulated multiple ships in different locations. The coalition fired blindly at images that didn't exist, wasting ammunition and energy. Kale maneuvered the real cruiser around them, striking weak points with precision. Shields fell, engines sputtered, and chaos reigned. The coalition attempted to retreat, but Kale anticipated their route, cutting them off at the exit of the system. None of them had ever faced a human commanding such power, using strategy instead of brute force. "They do not understand human thinking," the elders projected with quiet amusement. Kale grinned. "Let's teach them," he thought, and sent the cruiser twisting through the system, appearing and disappearing like a ghost. Every fleet maneuver was a puzzle they could not solve, every strategy a step ahead of their expectations. By the time the battle ended, the coalition fleet was crippled, humiliated, and forced to retreat. The galaxy would hear about it. The first clear message had been sent. Humans were not to be underestimated. As Kale looked out of the observation window, stars streaking by the cruiser's hull, he felt a strange sense of calm. The elders moved silently behind him, observing, guiding, and waiting. He was ready for whatever came next. And he knew this. The galaxy would soon realize that a single human, armed with intuition, courage, and the legacy of the Zethurian Empire, could challenge empires and change the course of history. Kale pressed a hand to the console, feeling the ship respond like a living organism. He could hear it almost whispering, "Lead them, teach them, shock them." And Kale Darnell, human and underestimated, was ready to do just that. The galaxy had been warned. Cale Darnell stood on the command deck of the Zethurian Echo, his eyes scanning the holographic map of the galaxy. Systems, fleets, and colonies blinked like stars in a web of tension. After the last confrontation, word had spread across multiple sectors. A human now commanded the most powerful cruiser in known space. Some whispered of luck, others of cunning, but Cale knew the truth. This was human ability, human instinct, human courage. The elders were fully awake now, their forms moving gracefully through the corridors, their thoughts projecting wisdom directly into Cale's mind. They had taught him the systems of the ship, the secrets of the Zethurian legacy, and the strategies of ancient wars. But there was still more to learn, more to prove. A warning alert blinked on the central console. Cale's eyes narrowed. This was not just a fleet, this was a coalition of multiple empires, a show of force unlike anything the galaxy had seen. They had gathered in secret, believing that together they could crush a single human before he became a legend. They do not understand humans, one elder projected, almost smiling. They believe numbers alone decide outcomes. They are wrong. Cale clenched his fists. Then let's show them, he thought. The fleet entered the system in formation, dozens of ships moving with deadly precision. They expected to find a single cruiser, vulnerable and isolated. Instead, Cale activated the Zethurian Echo stealth systems, which not only hid the ship but projected multiple decoys. To the Coalition, it seemed as if hundreds of cruisers occupied the system, surrounding them from every direction. The leader of the Coalition barked orders, frustrated. "All units, focus, fire, destroy the human before he disappears." Cale smiled faintly. "Disappearing is easy," he whispered to himself. He moved the ship through the system like a phantom. Gravity distorters bent the trajectories of missiles. Decoy projections confused targeting systems, and the cruiser's energy shields absorbed impacts with near-perfect efficiency. Every fleet maneuver Cale anticipated, every strike he deflected, made the Coalition question their own intelligence. "They are learning too slowly," one elder projected, and Cale felt a thrill at their words. Cale initiated the next phase. Using the Zethurian Echo's advanced systems, he created controlled energy bursts near the Coalition fleet's capital ships, forcing them to split and scatter. Smaller strike teams collided with one another, their own weapons disabled by miscalculated gravity fields. Cale could see their fear, the first crack in the confidence of the galaxy's most powerful militaries. He knew he had to go further. It wasn't enough to survive, he had to dominate. The elders guided him to the ship's hidden tactical archives. Ancient Zethurian simulations projected holographic battlefields around the command deck. Cale studied them, calculating movements, predicting enemy actions, and refining strategies that no human or alien had ever conceived. His intuition, combined with centuries of Zethurian knowledge, created an unprecedented edge. The Coalition fleet sent a warning message: "Surrender, human, resistance is futile." Cale ignored it. Instead, he pressed the console, and the cruiser warped in a way that made sensors think it was in multiple locations at once. The Coalition opened fire blindly. Missiles detonated harmlessly in empty space, lasers missed by kilometers, and energy pulses bounced off invisible shields. "This is just the beginning," Cale muttered. As the battle continued, Cale realized something astonishing. The Coalition's best fleets had never faced a human who could think beyond their expected patterns. Every time they anticipated a move, Cale acted unpredictably, exploiting weaknesses they didn't even know existed. Human intuition, chaos, and adaptability became his greatest weapon. "Humans are cleverer than we imagined," one elder projected, awe in its thoughts. "They act beyond logic and prediction." Cale grinned. He could feel the Zethurian Echo responding to him as if alive, humming with power, obeying every instinct and command. He pushed further, activating long-dormant weapons arrays, not to destroy but to disable. Ion bursts fried engines, energy nets trapped ships, and stealth disruptors caused total sensor collapse. The Coalition fleet was crippled, scattered, and utterly confused. Then came the moment Cale had been preparing for. The flagship of the Coalition, a massive warship, attempted to escape to report the human threat. Cale engaged the cruiser's advanced propulsion system, warping space just enough to intercept it. The flagship was trapped in a web of gravity distortions and energy fields, completely immobilized. Cale projected a mental image to the elders, seeking confirmation. They approved. He initiated a communication link directly to the flagship's command bridge. "This is Cale Darnell," he said calmly. "You underestimated humans. You ignored what we are capable of. Let me show you what happens when you do." The crew of the flagship froze. They had heard rumors but never expected a human to command the Zethurian Echo with such mastery. The elders projected Cale's strategy to the ship systems, demonstrating how easily the flagship could be neutralized. Fear spread like wildfire through the coalition ranks. Cale continued, his voice steady. "I am not here to kill. I am here to make the galaxy understand. Humans are not weak. Humans are not predictable. Humans survive, and humans act when others hesitate." The coalition had no choice. They surrendered, their fleet scattered, and their commanders humiliated. The galaxy watched in disbelief as a single human, commanding an abandoned cruiser, defeated a coalition of multiple empires. The elders moved silently behind Cale, their forms glowing faintly in admiration. "You have done what we could not," they projected. "You have shown the galaxy that humans are more than they believe." Cale leaned back, exhausted but exhilarated. The galaxy had witnessed his victory, but he knew this was only the beginning. There would be more fleets, more attempts to seize the cruiser, more challenges. Yet for the first time, humans would be seen as a force to be reckoned with. "You are ready," one elder projected. "The galaxy will now notice humans. They will respect you or fear you." Cale looked out at the stars, feeling a profound connection to the Zethurian Echo. This ship, these beings, and this knowledge were now his responsibility. But he also understood something deeper. Humans were capable of greatness not because of weapons or numbers, but because of ingenuity, courage, and adaptability. He pressed a hand to the console, feeling the hum of the ship vibrate through him. The elders had taught him strategy, but the victory belonged to human instinct. He smiled. "We act, we survive, and sometimes we shock the galaxy." Outside, the stars stretched endlessly. The galaxy had learned a lesson it would never forget. Humans were unpredictable, clever, and fearless. They could outthink, outmaneuver, and outlast entire fleets. And one human, Cale Darnell, had proven it to everyone. Cale turned to the elders. "What's next?" he asked. "Next, we prepare," they projected, "for the galaxy will test you again." But now they know they cannot ignore humans. Cale nodded, determination in his eyes. The Zethurian Echo was ready, and so was he. He would not wait for permission. He would not hesitate. Humans did not follow, they led, and the galaxy would remember that lesson for all time. Cale's voice carried through the command deck, calm and clear. "Let them come. The galaxy is about to see what humans can do." The Zethurian Echo thrummed like a living thing, alive with knowledge, power, and history. And at its center stood a single human, small but fearless, ready to define humanity's place among the stars. The galaxy had underestimated humans. That mistake would never be repeated.